Tonight on Bent TV, we meet Liz Alexander, Director of the Tilde Melbourne Trans and Gender Diverse Film Festival. We learn how the festival has developed since its inauguration last year and the film selection process. Then Q Sport. The Pride Cup luncheon occurred on the 17th of May at Yarra Glen. We hear in two parts the speech given by Jeff Kennett from Beyond Blue, with his topic being depressive mental illnesses and homophobia, and how the acceptance by the community can make significant differences to people's lives.
Hello and welcome to Bent TV. My name is Simona Castricum, and this afternoon I'm having a bit of a chat to Liz Alexander, who is putting together the Tilde Trans Film Festival.
Yeah.
I nearly said international. Is it international?
It is international.
Is it?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we're going to have a bit of a chat about Tilde today.
Great.
It opened its first season was last year, or the first year was last year. I guess tell us some of the things that you've kind of built upon from last year that have moved into this year's festival.
Sure. So yeah, we had our inaugural festival last year in 2014, and we had a weekend festival, and this year again we'll be having a weekend festival. I guess one of the things that's changed, well, a couple of things that have changed, is that we've had a lot more films submitted to be considered for the film festival, and I think the quality is actually getting better and better. And a much more of a diverse range. So we're getting films submitted from places like China, and lots of films came in from Latin America. And that was also, the programmers did a great job of scouting the world to find films with trans and gender diverse content, or films about trans and gender diverse people. We're also at a new venue this year, so we're at the Lithuanian Club, so it's bigger. Last year we had most of the sessions sold out, so we are going somewhere bigger and better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Tell us a bit about the selection of the movies, and maybe just tell us a little bit about the people behind that, and how that probably informs the process.
Yeah. Well, so there's two programmers, Anna Stevens and Cal Andrews, who've done an amazing job this year of finding a range of films for us to look at. I think we looked at 120 films all up. I didn't watch all of those, but Anna and Cal did very
120.
Gallantly. Yeah, it's a lot of hours of film watching.
That's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And all right, so it's kind of, well, that makes sense that you're dividing it up against so many people.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
goodness.
We need to share it around.
And they get into it?
Yeah, they
They're
loved
right?
it. Yeah, they loved it.
They get bored?
I don't know. Possibly at times there were some films that were a little bit.
When do you stop watching a shit film? Like, when do you know?
I reckon you can know about a quarter of the way through.
And you just go next on.
I might be a little bit less patient than Anna and Cal. They, I think, persisted with quite a few of the ones that I was like, nah, from the start. And we also had two external people on our selection panel who didn't watch the 120. We shortlisted it. Well, Anna and Carl really did a lot of the work around that, with me just checking in around sort of general vision of the festival. And Christina Radburn, who's a film producer, and Tama Favell, who's a visual artist, came on board, and we all got together, and those guys watched about, I think there were about 30 films on the shortlist, so they watched them, and then with us we made the final selections. So we just had an afternoon where we all sat around and ate a lot of chocolate and had a few drinks and talked about the films. So you had a party? Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much a party to select the films.
Does the more you drink, does it mean like the more likely you'll choose something that probably shouldn't be in there, or is it the other way around?
I think we were probably just on herbal tea, so it didn't get too crazy.
Oh, so it's not, no booze?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, maybe we cracked the champagne open once we'd made the selections, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't drink alcohol, but I reckon I'd consider at least a glass of wine during a big sesh like that.
Yeah, well, I reckon it was about 4 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
So how many films all up are in the festival?
Goodness, I think there would be around 20, or maybe 15. So there's a short session, which is a collection of short films, obviously, and there's about 6 or 7 in there. There's 4 sessions with feature films and a short, And then there's a short doco session, which has 3 docos. So add that all up and I think you get around 15,
Okay.
20 maybe. My maths isn't great.
Well, it's just better than mine. I'm not, it's all, I'm just,
all
you just give me a number and I'm not going to cross-reference and check it.
Oh,
You can do that at home.
Phew.
Yeah. What makes a movie trans?
Yeah, good question. Well, Tilde is about showcasing the work of trans and gender diverse filmmakers. So it might be that the filmmaker is trans or gender diverse, and the film might not have anything to do with gender identity. It might just be a film about a road movie. So that makes a film trans. Or if the content is about gender fabulousness, gender variance, gender diversity, then that makes a film trans too. And we try and look for films that are, I guess, have a lot of input in terms of whether it's the actors that are trans or gender diverse themselves, or the director, or that there's been a lot of consultation with the trans community, because I guess historically trans people has been represented by cisgendered people without a lot of consultation or collaboration. So
right.
that's one of the things that we think about.
You're getting quite a lot of, like a lot of involvement and a lot of sort of trans autonomy within these movies, and that's what's being celebrated? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that I guess we're seeing much more in the mainstream media and even in the cinema, films about trans people, and often the focus is around someone's gender identity or their transition. So we're trying to include films that are about other parts of people's lives, so it might be that the fact they're trans is incidental to the storyline, or it might just be a movie about a relationship that doesn't necessarily focus on someone's gender identity. That usually is a part of the films, and it's certainly part of at least some of the films that we're screening for the festival, but we're trying to get a bit of a mix into the festival, so there's a range of stories and perspectives.
Yeah, well, that sounds good, because it's kind of, I remember going last year, and, there was the opening night one, which was kind of like trans hooray for Hollywood.
It was.
I was like, wow, a happy ending,
Yeah.
So much more of that, or probably a little bit more perhaps. I'm quite interested in, I guess, the transcendental kind of transness, if you like, if I can sort of put a couple of trans into a sentence like that. I'm trying to be funny. I'm hilarious.
So in terms of what's in the program this year? So there's some sort of trans Hollywood hurrah-ness as well. There's a bit of that, I think, is important to show that, even mainstream sort of settings and countries do celebrate trans identities.
Cool.
But there's a couple of films that are much more obscure, I guess, in terms of where they come from. So we've got a film from Uruguay/Chile about an amazing trans woman who was part of the freedom fighting in Nicaragua and Uruguay.
We might come back to those in the next one.
Sure.
Is that cool?
Oh, yeah, no
Can we
worries.
do that?
Yeah.
Righto. Thanks. You've been watching Ben TV with my guest Liz, and we'll see you next time.
This man needs no introduction, but it says here that I've got to give him one. He is the current chairman of Beyond Blue. He is, of course, the former president of the Hawthorn Football Club, former Premier of Victoria, and a revolutionary, a fierce ally of the LGBTI community. Please put your hands together for Mr. Jeff Kennett.
Well, thank you, Dean. Can I just pay my respects to the first settlers of this community and their leaders past and present. Can I also, Madam Mayor, recognise you, members of Parliament, particularly Mark Evans, who, with the AFL, is taking this not only today, but this increasing awareness very, very seriously. And Matt Finnis, who is now the CEO of St Kilda, but played a very big role when he was CEO of the Players Association in trying to bring about change. I'm going to also just point out one other person, if you don't mind. I don't normally do this, but Jill Stark is in the room. She's a journalist with The Age, that awful organ. But having said that, Jill has been a very strong supporter of issues relating to depressive illnesses and now this one of homophobia. And Jill, we thank you on what you have done almost as the lone voice initially, but now continually supported by many more. And if you haven't read The Age this morning, and I don't like admitting that I have, but I have, there's a wonderful article there on depression and an editorial which supports this whole issue of discrimination. Today is important, I think, for three reasons. Firstly, that we're here. You might not think that's terribly important, but I was informed this morning of a friend who was run over and killed by a car 2 days ago, which reinforces in my mind, as every day does, how lucky we are to wake up in the morning. And we shouldn't take the gift of life for granted. It is very, very special, and we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to our family to really understand how important that gift is, and then how we devote the rest of our day in terms of ourselves and then community. Secondly, it's obviously important because we're in a beautiful part of Victoria and Australia, and hopefully we're going to see a very good match. And then thirdly, we're here because of this cause. And this cause is a bit like where we were when we started on depression, just over 15 years ago. It was an issue that wasn't talked about, mental health wasn't talked about very much, but as the wheels started to churn, so did people come on board, so too did people start talking about it, and so too did attitudes start changing. And it never changes as quickly as some of us would like. People often say to me, if you had one wish, what would it be? And my wish would be to end discrimination in all shapes and forms. And if you could do that, we would end up with a much more tolerant community. There would be less despair, less brutalisation, and certainly a lot less pain. And this issue, as it deals with those people who feel uncomfortable about their sexuality, not they themselves feel comfortable, but the way in which others perceive them in some way to be different, is a cause for great pain, and at times can lead, sadly, to a great number of deaths. And within the GLBTI community, the suicide rate per capita is as high, if not higher, than any other community in Australia. So therefore, going back to what was said from my bank's representative, Stephen, wherever you are, what Jason Ball did a few years ago was, without a doubt, very brave. And I remember when he rang us up at Beyond Blue to talk about, he wanted to come out, he wanted to talk about it, and how he was riddled with fear as to how, firstly, he was going to be seen within his own club, how he was going to be seen in his own community, and then not knowing what it was going to do to him in terms of his opportunities years to come. And after he came out, I remember him ringing me up very quickly, and two things have stuck in my mind ever since. He was amazed at the way in which his fellow club players embraced him. And secondly, one day when he was walking down his small country town, again worried about country attitudes in this particular area of life, someone from the other side of the street yelled out at him, someone he didn't know, and literally said to him something along the lines, "Well done, Jason." That is a very clear message, I think, to all of us. It matters not whether you suffer a depressive illness, it matters not what your sexuality is. There should be no reason why people should not be able to live their lives as fully as they wish, and that they should be able to be received and embraced in community as a citizen, regardless of issues about illness, regardless about issues to do with the mind, regardless of issues to do with sexuality. Now, I think there is no doubt that the wheel of knowledge is starting to have an effect. It's not going to happen overnight. And it is going to require more advocates and more people with more tolerance coming out, supporting people and encouraging people to be themselves. Jill Stark, in her article today, talked about again the footballer who is now left Melbourne, Mitch Clark, went to Geelong, and last weekend, you might remember, something happened during the match. He broke down and afterwards was in tears. In one sense, I loved that, because it was Mitch being himself, able to express himself without fear, knowing that because people knew he suffered an illness, which was not his fault, that no one in his club and no one around the ground was going to be critical of him. In other words, his public expression of who he was brought people with him. We often discriminate against people because we're being smart, because we're making a frivolous comment, because we don't necessarily think, but importantly, we don't know enough about the person with whom we might be having that conversation or aiming that barb.
Thank you for staying with Bent TV. Please visit our website, Twitter, YouTube channel and Facebook to find the different ways you can support Bent TV, provide feedback and become involved in supporting Bent TV. Back after this break.
A lot of people with depressive mental illnesses, serious mental illnesses, live very, very full lives. But the one thing I have learnt over the years, 15 years with Beyond Blue, and it is particularly so with sportsmen and women, more so with men than women, that where there is an issue that is causing them stress and anxiety, and it continues to build up without being dealt with, it can often lead to very, very serious illnesses. In fact, I'm very tempted, and may still do it, not this week, but next week, in that other organ, Jill, being the Herald Sun, to write an article having a look at the way in which professional sport is having such a huge social impact on those who are part of it. In other words, young men and women are picked up early, identified early, selected by a club, put into a cocoon, taken out of society, and then are pampered for as long as they're with that organisation until they are spat out by the system again. And in that professionalism, which is very different from the days when I grew up, when sportsmen and women did their training after work, played in the weekend, and then continued a career, so they kept abreast of those in their own peer group. Today, young men and women are taken out of life, cocooned, however much training they get. They have downtime, which many of them don't use wisely, downtime, which takes many of them to gambling, downtime, which takes them to, in many cases, social drugs, etc., etc. But all of that just builds on top of what might be happening with an individual who suffers from a lack of understanding by his or her peers about their condition. So a young gay man playing football, desperately trying to hold it to himself, scared of how he's going to be received, can actually end up very ill indeed. Same with people with mental illnesses. So today, to me, is a stake in the ground. I don't anymore come out on Saturdays and Sundays. Having been in public life for 30 years, I now try and make sure that Saturdays and Sundays are for me and my family and my grandchildren. But when Jason asked me to come here today, I had no hesitation. Nor did Mark Evans and nor did Matt Finnis. because this is a continuation of a ball that is gathering speed and gathering moss. And of the 840 odd senior AFL players, have no doubt about it, there will be a large number who are gay. It's not a crime to be gay. It's not a crime to have a mental illness. In my opinion, it's a crime and a reflection on us that we don't allow people to live their lives as they see fit. And this is often seen just as an issue about whether gay marriage should be allowed or not allowed. And I've got to say to you, many, many years ago, I was against it. Not that many years ago, 15 years ago. But as I continued to do work with Beyond Blue, I came to a point where I realised what right have I as a citizen to deny any other citizen, regardless of their sexuality, the same enjoyment, the same happiness, the same opportunities that I've had in my life, if as long as they, like me, were law-abiding citizens. I hope we get to a point quickly. I hope, and I was seeing some people last week who were very keen to arrange a Pride game in the AFL next year. Whether it happens or not, I don't know, but we're closer every week, we're closer every month, and we're closer every year. Not that the AFL should ever be seen as the only body responsible for social attitudes and social behaviour. They're not. It's a community issue. But the more the community can lock in, the more the community can enter into partnerships, the better we're going to be. So today is important, as I said to you. Firstly, because we're here. We've got this extraordinary environment. We'll see a good game of football. But we're also, in one way, part of a movement towards putting an end to discrimination based on sexuality. It's important we talk about this issue with those who aren't here. As parents, it's important we talk to our children from an early age. Not to instruct them, but just tell them the way in which our society should be working. Having said that, this is quietly a wonderful tribute today to Jason and to all those who are part of it. To Joy FM, who are covering this lunch and are covering this match and have put so much into it. From little acorns to big trees grow. We're changing the community's attitude on mental health and mental health issues. We will change attitudes to do with homophobia over time. Please do not get distracted. Please do not get upset if you don't achieve 100% tomorrow. We won't, but we will over time. And it's better to have genuine change than to try and bring about artificially and to make it a political type issue. I'd rather have bipartisanship. I'd rather people, regardless of age, regardless of gender, regardless of colour, regardless of politics, understand that if we can get rid of this aspect of discrimination, we will give so many Australians who are today not in any way ashamed of their sexuality, but discriminated against because the rest of the community hasn't yet got to the place where we offer them the same opportunities we have ourselves. Have a wonderful lunch, and if we all shut up for a moment, I'm sure the speech next door's a lot better. Thank you. Have a good day.
That's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for watching. My name is Gavin Henderson. Please visit our website, YouTube channel, Facebook to keep in contact and support Bent TV.